Sorry that you've been staring at my gut for like a minute. Alright, so today we're going to work on highlighting long hair. So long hair can kind of be a little bit daunting, especially when we're working with like hair that's this long, like 20 inches or so. So I'm going to show a couple ways where we can save some time so we'll get some maximum impact for the least amount of time and work. Okay, so we're going to do a different technique in the bottom half of the head on this side, and then we'll do a little bit more fine detailing as we get closer to the face. So the color that we'll be adding to most of the bulk underneath, we're going to be brightening up the ends nicely with highlights, but they're not necessarily going to go all the way up to the root. There's going to be a nice melt to them. Okay, so it's going to be taking larger zigzag sections to do those, and then by the time we get to the front, we're going to move into smaller weaves and some teased slices for the highlights. Okay, so first we're going to start out. We're going to divide the hair into by the top and bottom first. Just grab some clips here. Okay, so first what we're going to do is just divide it by the back, the bottom and the top basically. So let's divide it from probably midpoint of the bottom, the crown right there, to behind the ear, just on each side. So that will create kind of like a steep V angle. Okay, and then just do the same on the other side. Follow that point. Just took out the middle of the back of the ear there. So now we've just divided the hair from the top and the bottom. So from here down, we're going to be using some techniques to foil the hair that are going to save us a little bit of time. And also when dealing with long hair, if it's going to be a lengthy application, it's a good idea to start in the back first, and then that way you can let that hair process for the hour that it's taken you to do the front after these have already been in, and then you can just rinse these part out, or you can wipe them off after. Okay, so I'm just going to get myself, now also a reminder, so this mannequin is synthetic hair, so I'm not actually going to be using a lightener or anything that's going to produce a result. So unfortunately you're not going to see a result, but you are going to see the application. Okay, and I'll try to just describe it as best as I can. Alright, so let me just get the lightener ready that we'll be using, the mock lightener. Thank you for the likes, I appreciate that. My main goal with this particular demo is just to talk about tips and tricks for when we're dealing with hair that's this long, okay? So the back we're going to be doing foilage techniques, so that's why I'm using this larger brush. When I'm doing a foilage technique, it's generally going to be a thicker section, so I want to get more light or more product onto the hair with each brush stroke. If I'm using a smaller brush, it's going to take me a lot more work to work the color through. So that's why I got the big brush. Alright, so before we get started, I'm going to explain a little bit about what I'm going to do. I'm going to do kind of like a brick lay pattern where I'm going to be working on a diagonal on each side for each foil, then I'm going to go into the middle, and then I'm going to repeat that again. So it will be like a diagonal foil, a diagonal, and then a horizontal. A diagonal, and then a horizontal. So we'll probably repeat that about 2 or 3 times. So let's show you how to get each foil. So I'm going to be working with a zigzag technique. So what we're going to do is just zigzag some hair out underneath there, okay? But then we're also going to zigzag on top of the zigzag. And then we're going to diffuse the section by adding some back combing, okay? So we're just going to back comb any hairs that would make it to about that level. Unfortunately, these mannequins don't really have different lengths of hair. They're kind of curtain-like, the synthetic ones. So back combing doesn't show the same way as it does on a person. On a person, you'd probably be pushing up a lot more hairs than what you're seeing me push up on this synthetic mannequin, okay? So we're going to diffuse the top of the root line. And then another thing that will help you out, let me just raise my mannequin, add up a bit. Another thing that can help you when you're dealing with sections that are a little bit on the thicker side, especially if they're long, is you could use a rigid board. Okay, so we just get a rigid board up to the section, and that will help with our painting. And another thing, one more thing I want to point out is if you are working with a thicker section and you really want to just ensure that your saturation is going to be even on both sides, is you can pre-light or pre-apply lightener to the foil. Okay, so that way when you get your section up, you'll know you're going to have at least that insurance layer underneath. And when working with large sections, I like to do long, even brush strokes just to ensure the saturation is going to be fairly even. So just kind of do controlled, longer brush strokes to get the product on. And then what you can do is just start working that product in. Okay, so notice that we are a little bit farther away from the root at this point, but now is when I'm going to just start to blend that color up a bit with slightly less pressure with my brush. Okay, then I'm going to use even less pressure as I get higher up. Okay, you just want to create a graduation of lightness. Okay, so you could fold this up or you could lay a foil on top. So sometimes it's a little bit more control to just lay a foil on top of it. That way the hair is going to be laying fairly undisturbed. You're not folding it up, maybe causing a crease where the lightener might seep off if you fold it too heavy. So then we just lay that nicely, maybe fold the bottom. And then I've seen some people like to do this where they just tuck the top corners in, but leaving the width of it open. Just to hold that section a little tighter, okay? So we're going to repeat that on the other side. I'll leave the mannequin like this and then I'll just move my stuff over. How's that? Okay. So we're going to just take a zigzag, right following that side hairline. And then we're just going to zigzag on top of it again. So that's going to be our working section. Try not to get them confused. And then we're just going to diffuse that top 2 inches or so. Now again, as a reminder, on human hair, we're going to have a lot more different lengths to back comb up, but on this synthetic wig, it's a little bit more curtain-like and all the hairs are very similar in length. So you're not really seeing a true back combing result right now. Okay, grab my rigid one. And we'll lay our foil on our board. And then again, just like we did with our last foil, let's give it some product just to preload it a bit. It will just help us with our saturation. Okay, a nice, even, long brush stroke as you get that first layer on. Make sure you have a good amount of product too on the brush. And again, I'm using lighter brush strokes as I work near the top of the section. The foil right on top of it. Give the bottom a little bit of a fold. And then you can fold those corners in while leaving the width, just so that it gives a little bit of a grip on those top two foils there. Alright, so now we move on to the middle section. Like I said, it's going to be a little bit of like a brick layer. Alright, so then what we're going to do is just take a zigzag right at the base, just to leave a little bit of hair out. And then we're going to take a zigzag just right on top of that. Okay, just leave those out, not to get confused. And just back home that top 2 inches or so. My mic's working, right? Oh, I forgot to put foil on. Let me know if my mic's working or not, if you're watching. Just blend that vertically so you don't create a solid line. You want it to have an organic finish to it. Make sure that those corners stay nice and tight there. Okay, so then what we're going to do is work on that same angle that we took before here. So we're going to take a zigzag right against it. And then we're going to take a zigzag right on top of it. Okay, so that's our next section. Now on this angle. That top 2 inch, give it a back comb. Crystal, thanks for the follow. And also on YouTube, thanks for the like. I just noticed that. Thank you to who's watching on YouTube. Feel free to comment. Actually, I'm not sure if I can see YouTube comments. Let me just double check for a sec. Oh, I got a little bit too excited. Forgot to preload the board. That can be okay. Like sometimes I don't preload the board. It all depends on like how thick the hair is as well. they have really thick hair and these sections, like the hair is really getting lost, and you're going to want to just preload the underneath there. But in some cases, I don't always preload the board. So having a rigid board like this helps for, definitely helps with your saturation, that's for sure. So I apologize, anyone on TikTok, I'm off camera right now at the side, but if you're watching me on YouTube, you can still see what I'm doing here on the side here. Because on TikTok I have it on portrait, and then YouTube it's on horizontal. Okay, so now the other side, following that same angle, just give it a zigzag. And then another zigzag right above it. See, what this is doing is it's giving us really unstructured amounts of hair in our foil. Okay, so that the blend is going to be nice and unstructured and organic looking. One thing I like about preloading the foil is that it holds the hair down once you put it on the section. So now you have less work to do to control the hair, because now it's kind of glued down by itself. And then once you get that nice heavy layer of product on, you're golden. And then you can just continue blending it. It's also nice to try to keep the board at a steady angle that you've rested it. Try not to change the angle that you're holding it on while you're doing it. Keep everything nice and steady. Okay, so those two folds of the corner, just make sure that it kind of grips the section a little bit better. All right, so since we're bricklaying, we're going to go back to the horizontal section again. So just give it a horizontal zigzag. Okay, so we'll leave that hair out, but then zigzag again right on the top of it, so that we're taking out a fairly large unstructured weave. That's essentially what this is. So just leave it out at the side there. Okay, see the shape of the hair that we've created? It's a zigzag on top and then a zigzag on the bottom, kind of giving us a really kind of unstructured weave. And what we do is just diffuse the top of that highlight. And we'll preload How much more is that? Reload our board on the entire length. Sorry to block the camera, my lightener is on the other side there. Okay, so try to do a nice solid okay, I'm gonna need to mix up some more of my lightener. Run out. Okay. Moving right along. So at this point, we can probably just move into finishing it off with another horizontal section. And then we'll now be done the entire back. Okay, so with this technique, we've now quickly gotten a whole lot of highlights into the bottom part of the hair. So yes, they're not going to be all the way up to the root. There's going to be a diffusion where they just kind of melt into the hair, but that's okay because we're not really paying a lot of attention to the root line underneath the hair very much, okay? So why not save a little bit of time and do a technique like this where we can get large amounts of highlights into the hair that are nicely diffused. You don't really see exactly where they start from, instead of spending, you know, an hour just foiling the back of the hair. All right, let me just get some more of this. An hour or more sometimes, right? Whoops. So if you're just joining, a reminder, this is a synthetic haired mannequin, so I'm using a conditioner with paint that looks like a lightener, just to demonstrate what the full highlight on long hair would look like. Mannequins of hair this length usually run a few $100s, so I'm still saving up to buy one to use as a demo. So everyone in the chat has been a little bit quiet. Either my mic is not working or everyone is shy. Feel free to keep asking color questions as we're going along with the demo. Oh, and YouTube, I haven't checked if I've comments. Let me see here. Can I? Yeah, I think live chat's visible. Okay. Yep, it's visible. Everyone's just watching. That's all right too. You can just watch. Just so you know, questions are welcome and encouraged. So are likes. Okay. Tail comb, foil. So now we're back to reloading or preloading our foil. Wait, that's a short foil, isn't it? Oh no, it wasn't. My color closer, so I stopped putting my back. How to achieve a gray tone? Okay, so usually with a toner, there's a lot more gray toners available now, which are usually like a deep, kind of a violet blue base. But the key to that toner working is that the hair needs to be pre-lightened. And I'll show you what it needs to be pre-lightened to. I have a swatch handy. So the hair needs to be pre-lightened to a pale yellow, which is like the inside of a banana peel, in order for that gray toner to truly work. Because if it's not pale yellow, it's darker than that, it's going to have either yellow or even gold or orange or any of those darker tones. When you mix it with silver, you don't quite get silver, you'll get more of like warmer shades of like taupe, etc. But if you want a silver, the hair is going to have to be pre-lightened to that first. Otherwise, it's not really going to work. There are darker silvers that are designed to go on darker hair, so there is that option. They're specially calibrated to go on top of like hair that's only been bleached, to say like an orange or gold. However, they're not a light silver, they're a dark silver. What lightener do I recommend? Something like the L'Oreal Blonde Studio 9. Oh, sorry, that's professional. You want a professional recommendation? The Blonde Studio 9, that's you do have to have a license to get that product though. Technically you need a license for that product. Okay, so here's our next section. My board's not actually it's not completely rigid like some of the ones you can buy. Mine has a little bit of bend to it, which is sometimes kind of nice, but it is a little bit better to have it harder than this board that has bend in it, okay? The ones that are completely rigid. Just mine's homemade because I'm cheap. It's just a dollar store cutting board cut in half. It's not that I'm cheap, it's just that I buy the expensive ones and then I somehow either lose them or I break it somehow. One of them got put through the dishwasher and then it worked. And like they're $50, so I wasn't keen on spending another $50, so I just did this dollar store hack. Alright, so this would add a ton of highlights to that underneath. There's still going to be a good amount of dimension left out, but what you could even do is these foils, you could have maybe not left them long, you could have folded them up and then possibly done like a tip out in between. Let me just turn my YouTube camera, point it down a little bit, it's missing some of the hair. Sorry about that, YouTube. I need to move it up a bit. So on TikTok, I'm doing it's portrait style, so it's seeing all the way down to here. All right. Okay, so we've done the back. Now we're going to move on to the front, where we can start to change up the technique a little bit. We can move to like a bit more fine detailing, where we're getting a little bit closer to the root in some spots. Okay, start to brighten it up a little bit towards the face a bit more. Okay, so as you can see, even with the placement, that we have dealt with like a majority of like that real long length in the back and underneath. Up until about the crown. The crown we're going to do separately, but all the underneath for the most part is done. Okay. So this particular mannequin, though, it has a fringe. It has a big, not really the nicest fringe. I cut it myself and didn't really do that good of a job. So sectioning for it is going to be a bit more based on the fringe, so it's a little different than I would normally do if there wasn't a fringe there. So first what I'll do is just section the fringe out separately. Just going to be done. That's going to be coil separately. Okay, so just comb it down, take the long hairs out. See how it follows. See, I don't know what I was doing with this fringe. It's kind of like a second haircut. It's like a completely different haircut within the haircut. But I mentioned I do specialize in color, right? I don't cut. So any cuts you see on the mannequins, it's like, oh, well, thank you for the compliment. But technically, I think my coworkers would laugh at that. But if you're not a hairdresser, you need to understand hairdressers were a little mean to each other about technicality sometimes, especially when you're close to each other. Okay, at my salon, we all make fun of each other's work. Sometimes, not always, but you know. Okay, so we've got the fringe separately. Because normally what I would do is this part would just connect to the back of the ear, but it would be part of the fringe. But the fringe is separately, so this section is just going to be kind of behind it. Kind of continue the fringe, curve it behind the ear. Let me just show you what this section looks like, because I just don't think I did a good job describing what I was doing there. Let's just do it again. Okay, so the top of the fringe is there. I'm just curving around and back behind the ear here to create this side hairline section. That would normally be part of where the hair is in the fringe, but that fringe is just throwing everything off. All right, we'll just decapitate her and spin her around and show you the other side. Again, we'll curve from behind the ear, just the top of that fringe section. We'll make it a little larger to match the other side. In fact, let's take the angle. Let's actually change the angle a little bit on the other side as well. Okay. All right, so other side. Oh, no, we're good. Okay. All right, so we have our two side hairlines taken out, which just leaves us with the hair that's on the part and crown the top layer here. So let's just section that out for later. Clip it away. All right. Krista, thanks for the follow. So fringes are always kind of like an awkward thing when it comes to highlighting. So what should we do? All depends on how she wears the fringe. Like what side is it? Is it worn on? I'm not even sure how a client would wear a fringe this long with it being in their eyes, but let's pretend that yes, she likes her hair like that. It's going to be worn down. So what should we do about the fringe? So I'm a fan of a fringe having highlights just on the top layer and also only kind of on the ends, like just something that kind of the ends have some lightness melted on them, but not doing the whole fringe all the way up to the root and having chunks run through it. I like it to just look like the kind of sun has kissed the highlight a little bit and it's lighter on the ends than it is at the root. So how can we do that? Well, we could do similar to what we did in the back. We could do some zigzag highlights, but what we could do is maybe do them a little bit smaller, not as large of a section. So why don't we try that? We'll just take a zigzag right at the front. Okay, we'll be leaving that out. And since the hair is short, why don't we clip it, just because this is going to become really confusing in a sec. And zigzag right on top of it. Okay, now take this hair, but leave out the zigzag that you have underneath. Alright? Okay, now we don't necessarily have to backcomb these short hairs. If there is enough hair to backcomb, then definitely go ahead and do that. Okay, so let's just see how that hair lies once we put just some highlight right on the very end of it and work that through. So now we've just saturated the ends of the hair, but I don't want to leave it just on the ends. I want to graduate this lightener up a little bit higher. So just using light brush strokes, I'm going to just start climbing a little bit. But notice that it's quieter as I paint because I'm using lighter brush strokes. It's because I just want to sort of very lightly surface paint the hair. So I don't want that lightener to seep through all the way to the back side as I get higher up. I want it to kind of graduate from like a little bit of saturation to strong saturation on the ends. Okay, just so we get that organic sun-kissed highlight look. The sun is never going to have us be as bright at the top of a highlight than it's going to be at the bottom. It's always going to have a graduation. Okay, the sun doesn't give us, you know, real bright chunks right at the root. Okay, and then just do a few strands, a few strokes where you go higher up, really lightly. Okay, so visually you should be able to see what you're creating as you're applying the lightener. Okay, so this foil here should kind of give you like some brightness at the base of the highlight or at the base of the fringe for some softer highlights to fall on top of. Okay, so just slice on top of where you did your last zigzag, and then we're just going to throw a baby light. We're going to throw a baby light there, just so we have some real soft, fine baby lights falling on top of what we just created under there. So just take some nice soft weaves. Right at the top, it could be the same direction as it's fall, like the direction that the bangs are falling. That's fine as long as they're soft and not too heavy. I'm going to saturate the ends first, just like I did with the first foil, and I'm also going to just lightly blend up so that these highlights aren't exactly completely touching the root area. They could be high up, but not like completely right up to the scalp if you want it to have an organic look. Okay, so that's foil number 2 in the fringe. Oh, what's happening? I'm missing comments. What was I missing in the comments? Sorry. I was trying to catch up, but I can't. Okay. All right. So then we're going to do another baby light on top of that one, just until we run out of hair in the fringe. Okay, so we can probably do like 1 or 2 more fine baby light foils. to make it easy on myself, what I'm going to do is just take a fine slice, and I'll use my Dreamweaver, and then that took my highlight for me, my leaves. Okay, do we have any fringe left? Looks like we actually don't. Okay. So first did the fringe, and now we're going to do the side hairline, and we'll use a similar zigzag. But I want a little bit more brightness at the side hairline, so what I'm going to do is foil the bottom zigzag that we take out. So just zigzag like this, and it should give you kind of like a woven look. So we'll clip the hair up, and then we're just going to back comb that first 2 inches. Okay, so just as a reminder, all the techniques that we're doing right now are more geared towards speed and efficiency. So this is when we're highlighting really long hair for the first time, and we want to make a big impact with a little less work than it would take if we were going to be going in and taking our really fine baby light full foil sections, okay? So this is a way that we can get like a high impact highlight without taking too long to put them in. Just blend the top of that highlight line vertically. Fold the corners at the top. Okay, all right. I'm glad you're learning a lot, that this is relaxing. That's my goal. All right, we'll take a zigzag behind that one. Okay, and then that will just get left out. Let's take a zigzag that's a little smaller than that. I don't want to leave out too much hair here. So since these sections are a little finer than I was working with at the back, I'm not reloading the foil anymore because I'm not as worried about my saturation. And another thing you can do instead of putting the foil on top is you can just fold the bottom, fold it 3 times like that. And that's another option, okay? Especially when you get to areas of the hair where the hair is not as long, it's not as risky to fold it up like that. So we'll zigzag again. This hair's a little tangly, apologize. I grab my brush actually just to brush out the section. So we've now zigzag the section to leave out, and now I'm just going to zigzag on top of it. Alright, so that becomes our working section. Hello S, how's it going? I apologize, my mannequin stand is lowering on me. Okay, so now we've got this side of the hairline done. Where am I located? Lisa, I'm in, fabric softener, and that's kind of a good idea. I've heard of that. Yes, I'm Canadian. I'm near Toronto. My salon's in Burlington, Ontario, but I live in Hamilton. Okay, so let's zigzag that hair out from the front hairline, and then that's what we're gonna foil, just so we have some nice bright pieces right up to the front. No, not affected by the TikTok ban. I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's not that the app is going to be like banned and deleted from phones and illegal to possess and anything like that. It has more so to do with how companies are able to do business with TikTok in the US. So it's not quite as like sinister as it sounds at face value, I guess. So that the app's not going to just stop working all of a sudden. Just zigzag some hair to leave out. Normally I would want to work with a foil that's a little bit longer than I'm working with right now, if I had this length, just so I don't have to curl the ends of the hair up like that. Because you have to be careful with dry spots when you do that, specifically where the curl happens. Usually this area can be a little bit dry, so if the foil is not long enough for you to do like a solid sweep down, you have to curl it up like that, just make sure you do work it through. Okay, I'm missing a couple of comments. Okay, so tips on getting close to the root without bleeding. Alright, so we're going to work on that when we do the top section. So I just have one more foil to go, and then we're going to be working on foils that we will be getting closer to the root with. So right now, these foils underneath and on the side have all been just a little bit more lived in. But the benefit of the way that I'm putting in the foils here is that it adds brightness to the lengths and ends of the hair quickly, but we do sacrifice how close to the root it gets. But in areas where you're not going to see the root line really, that's okay. So at the part and at the crown, we're going to do foils that are going to be closer to the root. Okay, so now that we've done the sides, we're going to move on to the top layer. A little heavy under here. Okay. So this is the hair that we have left. It's basically the hair that is on the part, and then the hair that is at the back of the crown, at the top. Okay, so this is the rest of the hair that we just need to finish. So having a look at the hair, how does this hair influence the rest of the highlight after everything we've done? Okay, so this is the part of the hair where we would see root lines from for the part. Okay, so if we want to have something that looks a little bit more fresh, then we're going to want to get a little closer to the root now in this section of hair. But it also gives us our top layer of color that we're going to see, our outer layer of color. So it's still going to be important that the ends here, like if we're going for a really light look, it's going to be important that the ends are all nice and light. So that's telling you that we're probably going to do a tip out as well. So we'll do some slices throughout the top, but then all that hair lift in between, we'll back comb it and apply a tip out on the end so that all of the hair is nice and light, or that lightness extends to the tips. Oh, Caitlin, you're back. Yes, I have it right here. This is it. And I have it in like it's just in saran wrap. But that's the color. So it's not bad. Looks good. So I wrote down like, I calculated how many grams of each that it took, and that's gonna help me out when I'm recreating the color with using hair color. Because what I was able to do with the formula is I dissected how much gray is in it, like from what was written down. So I made the color gray that is inside this form. So I'm not making sense. I just went off topic to everyone, but Caitlin helped. We were creating this color with paint last night, and so yeah, the underlying gray in this, I figured out what that is, and that's really gonna help with how I make this color, because that's what shows me what the depth is. And can Americans use VPN for TikTok? Yeah, they could, but I don't think they're not going to be denied access to TikTok. There's not going to be a problem using TikTok. It has something to do with how businesses are allowed to do business with TikTok in the States. There's something banned about that. That's what that ban means. Like, it's not, I don't know a ton about it, but I just know that much. And it's not that we're not losing access to it. Oh, I'm gonna need that fabric softener, and I'm also gonna need some duct tape to keep my stand from doing that. One sec. In true Canadian fashion. Duct tape. The trusty duct tape. This stand's only 2 years old too, and it's like so busted. Okay. Razor that high. I guess I'm just rough on things. Alright, I think I made her too high. Too late. Okay. So let's do our angle of attack here for how we're going to get our remaining slices in. Normally this is in like the rhombus shape, which is like upside down V, upside down, or V at the back. But because of the fringe, it's thrown it off that I don't have an angle at the front to work on, if that makes sense. Like, it's not what I'm expecting. So I kind of have a larger section at the top than I would prefer for doing slices. So these are going to be really, really wide foils we're going to be putting in. Yeah, because normally I'd be on this, I'd have an angle like this to work on, where right now it's either straight back, but those would be really wide sections. How about we do this? It's all, the fringe is what's throwing everything off here, this dreadful fringe. Why don't we just do straight back from the fringe all the way to the crown, and then that's just going to leave a few, like at 2 inches on the side here, that we'll put the foils in at a different angle there. Okay, I'll check my balance about all this after. This could be really off balance, but because I don't have like a working mirror to. I'm going to just go straight back from there. Okay, there we go. So what I'll do is I'll do a mohawk section to do our slices back. And then the hair here, we can just do a few slices diagonally back on each side. Okay, just to complete the section. So let's put those in first, our diagonal back foils. Before we do that though, I have to rip some more foil because I'm fresh out, and then we'll have to get some more of my lightener. Am I missing comments? Zila, thanks for sharing. Paulina, thanks for following. I appreciate it. Ooh. Oops. Okay, foil prep. Feel free to jump in with any hair color questions that you might have as I'm prepping the foil, or at any time at all. Questions are always welcome, always encouraged. What I'm here for. So we're going to be doing slices to finish this technique off, and I apologize to whoever I said I was going to show how to get close to the root. That was so long ago, and I doubt you're even here still because I've been rambling on about other stuff. But if you are still here, we're going to focus on getting closer to the root with our slices, and also getting our slices in quickly. So this last part of the technique is, I actually like when I get to the slice part of it, because for me, I've been putting slices in forever, that it's quicker for me to do slices than anything else. So I'll show you how to throw in some slices, get close to the root, and then do a tip out in between those slices, okay? Slices with a tip out is like one of the fastest ways to get someone into looking like they have like that lived-in blonde who had summer bleach, you know, all that stuff. Okay. That should be enough highlights to get us going here, or foils to get us going. I think I will need more, but let's just start anyways. All right, we'll start on this side. Just a reminder, there's the front of her. We're now working on just that last little bit at the side interior of the hair. At the side here. Okay, so for slices, what made me choose to do hair? All right, let me answer that before we get into the slice. So I was saying earlier on my live I was doing this morning that I actually don't have any memories that I can think of not being preoccupied with hair. And I remember to when I was a little kid. So what started the preoccupation with hair color is the fact that my own hair color was a bit unusual. It's faded a lot now, but I'm a natural kind of a ginger, like strawberry blonde. And so I got a lot of attention like from strangers and people about my hair color when I was young. So it got me like very kind of hyper aware that people thought about hair color, if that made sense. Because most kids don't think anything about hair color. So I was preoccupied with it, and I wanted to learn about how to change hair color, because I wanted to change my hair color so that it was just ash, normal, face it, no red. So that's where the obsession first started from, was how do I get the red out of my hair? So saying that, anyone who has questions about how to remove hair from red, natural red from the hair, I have answers. So that's how I started to like, oh, I didn't even talk about what I was doing there with the slice. So yeah, that's how I got into hair. Slices. Okay. So our last section here was the zigzag. So I'm just going to slice a little bit on top just to leave some more depth. And then the slice I want to take is going to be like pin thin. So See how it's like the same width as the pin of my comb pretty much. Okay, so if it's that thin, see if it's thin like that, we're gonna get nice and close to the root. The foil is gonna get nice and close to the root. Maddie, I see your comment. I'm just gonna wait to see what you type next. Yeah, it's kind of like, the way I worded it sounds like it's sad how I got into hair, but it really isn't, because I had fun coloring my own hair when I was young. Like, I used to bleach it with sun in. Like, I never really made it ash, but I would bleach the red out with sun in and make it blonde. That was fun. I'm gonna get a smaller brush. When I work with slices, I don't like working with the big brush, only for the larger sections. Okay, and then I'll just give it just a quick fold in half. Okay, take your subsection just a little bit like bigger than double the width of what your slice is going to be. And then take your pin size slice. I've gone from one opposite brush to another to my smallest brush. And you see what I mean by the hair that is left out in between these foils? What you can do is you can tip them out. So like every few foils, just go in between them, hold them by the very tips. Okay, back comb a good amount of that hair up while still holding on to the very tips there, and then apply what's called a tip out. This is when I would want my larger brush again that I put away. So it's a good idea to get your tip outs in as you're foiling, just so that they have a long time to process. And in some cases, you might even want to raise the developer that you're using on your tip out if it's going to be a much thicker section. Okay, question, Maddie. Okay, sorry. Okay. Okay, so you had a client similar to this color was the canvas. You did Baby Light's Root Smudge. She didn't end up liking the color because the contrast of the blonde made it look Kelly Clarkson. Okay. But we had to tone twice, and it was more neutral blonde with red in between. It wasn't chunky, so I don't know how I could have fixed it. She knew we couldn't get ashy in one section. She didn't want to do an in-between. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I know, everyone wants the AI filter hair. So, the Kelly Clarkson, so that just means like so placement-wise, we can avoid the Kelly Clarkson even when we're doing chunky, just by how we diffuse it. So instead of taking heavy slices, like take more like these zigzag shapes, but make sure that you're backcombing, like especially if you really want to diffuse the top of that highlight, backcomb from even halfway down the hair shaft, just so that you have a good amount of those natural dark hairs to cover the top of the highlight line to diffuse it so it doesn't end up looking like like that Kelly Clarkson where it's like that unblended chunk, okay? Because as with enough diffusion, even real heavy, chunky highlights can look natural, okay? If they're diffused enough with the backcombing diffusion. I really should list these content creators, but there's a couple content creators I follow, and they work pretty much exclusively on people who are naturally like a dark brown, like level 3s and 4. And some of the techniques that they do involving backcombing, like just gorgeous work where there's actually like really heavy areas of blonde in the dark hair where you would consider it chunky, but it has such a natural melt to it. And it all has to do with how it's diffused at the top of the highlight. Okay? Yeah, the contrast was a lot. So her natural was a 7. Yep, exactly. I'd have to see a picture to give much more advice. I think what I was talking about might not be relevant to what you're talking about, how I was talking about how to diffuse the Kelly Clarkson highlights. I think yours was talking more about tone, it sounds like, not actual. Yeah, red and blonde, it's not really a pleasing mixture. It's not overly natural. Um, so I tend to go towards, if there's going to be blonde and red mixed together, I go toward more like golds with copper and to mix it. But people don't always want natural, right? Oh, no problem, Maddie. Yeah, anytime you have questions, just let me know. So just continue to put the slices in, and then just being aware to put a tip out in every third foil or so. And so that was my last tip out, so I don't need to do that hair there, just this hair. tuck the tip out just inside the foils there, because with the person, it will be warmer there. There'll be heat for it to incubate it. And then you would just repeat the other side. Was this dyed red? No, this is I think so, yeah, because this is synthetic hair. This is not colorable hair, so it's some sort of stain. Like, it wouldn't be dyed like with hair color, but it was like dyed like with some sort of what they stain synthetic hair with. It wouldn't be like conventional hair color, it would be something else. Right, so we'd be doing our slices along here, and then the tip out in between every 3 foils, which is just going to give us just a sparkly, like some bright highlights throughout, but it's going to be nice and blonde on the end, or whatever color you're doing as your highlight will be majority on the ends there because of those tip outs. Okay? And then the mohawk section, you could just do your slices straight back, or you could do it that way as well. All right, but I've got to get off the live right now because I need to go make dinner. But don't forget to follow me, and just so you know when I'm on next. And thanks everyone for watching. So I'll talk to everyone soon. I'll see you later.